What's up, everybody? Welcome to Respect Our Authoritah, Wisecrack South Park podcast.
Respect my authority!
My name is Jared, and I'm joined here with the authoritarians. We got Lux.
Hey, everyone.
And Amanda.
Hey, dudes.
So unfortunately, Ryan is not with us today. Got an announcement regarding Ryan. He's still with us, still in our hearts, but Ryan got a new job. Ryan is, he's editing at Funhouse, which is a channel that we've collabed with a whole bunch. We, on the DL, we kind of got him that job. But, yeah, we did a live show with them recently, and so he's going to try and make it as much as he can. But, you know, he's got a full-time job on the other side of town for a company owned by AT&T, so that's pretty awesome. But he did leave us a voicemail. Good for Ryan. He did leave us a voicemail, though, so instead of getting right into the guesswork, let's hear what Ryan has to say. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, we're covering Season 22, Episode 7, Nobody Got Cereal. So anyway, let's hear what Ryan has to say.
Yo, what up, Wisecrack? It's your boy Ryan here. I'm in Tennessee. I couldn't make it to the pod today. Just got done watching the episode, though, and I thought it was pretty much a total rehash of last week. Didn't really get much new information. I did like that they kind of clarified their views a little more. I like the exchange between Kyle and Al Gore, kind of Kyle giving Al Gore some shit, you know, for not all of his predictions were right, that kind of thing, you know. They kind of took a more gray area than, oh, Al Gore was totally right and we were totally wrong. Also, you know, because Al Gore did say that, like, there'd be no fucking snow in Mount Kilimanjaro and shit by now. But the spirit of what he said was right. Anyway. Then also, I like that they clarified their fuck old people message and how basically, you know, if the kids were in that position, then they basically would have made the same deal with the devil. So it kind of clarifies what I thought their thesis was last week, which is we're all fucked, it's all hopeless, and no one has any intention or motivation to change this very serial situation we're in. Anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts. Didn't really like the episode, but did think like that they clarified some of their thoughts on global warming. And then also, I loved the scene with Satan dying. That was probably one of the best scenes of the season, because it was totally fucked up. Anyway, thank you very much. I love you both, or all. I love all of you, and I love South Park, and I love all the people on the internet. Okay, I'm going to end this now. Goodbye.
He loves all the people on the internet.
When he said both, which one of us do you think he forgot?
Good question.
Probably me.
I was thinking probably me, just because
you guys see each other.
I feel like I'm a given. But anyway, before I go into guessing what Amanda and Lux thought, Jacob also left us a message. Let's see what he has to say. Go, Jacob.
What up, authoritarians? It is Jacob calling from DFW. I really wish I could be there in the studio today. I am so disappointed I can't be. First of all, this episode is incredible. A++ across the board. Loved it.
Wow.
Watched it on the plane, and I was like, man, this is like the Jared episode. Number one, we have Jared, the Galleria of Jewelry, which, as you may not know, Jared's sister worked there. And, of course,
story.
People say, it could only be Jared. So we had Jared's Jewelry, or Jared's Jewelers. Then we had more Red Dead Redemption. And then this whole theme of everyone starting over and over and over again. You had the new beginning for that couple at Jared, the new beginning for the detective's wife. She creates that new beginning and that new life for herself in the game. A new beginning for the community with Man, Bear, Pig. A new beginning for Satan. I thought that whole cycling was so awesome. I thought When Should I Start to Worry was absolutely hilarious, seeing that twice. In the community center, you had all these sounds of ambulances and sirens in the background, that tension happening. And everyone's saying, well, I think maybe we should consider starting to worry. We got Randy again. We got more Al Gore going cereal and his bowling shoes, which I hadn't noticed before, but he has those all the time. It's great. And then, of course, who could forget Stan's grandpa and all that talk of dried cum on Grandma's tits. That was just, what an episode. I'm going to guess A+ across the board. What a great season, man, and what a great episode. Really wish I could be there. And, man, it's also your birthday, Jared, so happy birthday, Jared. Hope it's a great one, and we'll speak soon. Bye.
All right. Okay, so Jacob did a little bit of guessing there. He guessed A+ around the board. Why don't we just go with that? So let's start with Amanda. How did Jacob do?
You know what? Like, hearing his enthusiasm made me remember. So I watched it twice, and the first time I was like total A plus. The second time I kind of started seeing, some kind of structural stuff that wasn't as spot on as it sometimes is. So the second time it was like a B minus. So I think I'll settle out at like an A minus B plus.
Okay. How about you, Lux?
Yeah, I have a sort of similar take to Amanda. Not that I had a very different view watching it the 2 times I watched it, but rather that like during the episode there were parts that were like A plus 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 good and other parts that were like way weaker. Like they were like C minus level. And so I think like averaging the 2 ideas together, I think a B plus A minus is just about where I'm at. Also, this is the second week in a row where I've written a joke before the show and then someone has stepped on it before I got to do it. Because I had a bunch of bits about you having a Galleria named after you.
Sorry about that. Can I guess that the bit that worked the worst for you, which is actually also the one that worked the worst for me, is the Al Gore and his Force Ghost Al Gore?
Yep.
Yeah, that fell really flat for me.
Yeah, did not want. But what was your overall take?
I thought it was pretty good. I think I'm probably on the same level as you guys. I mean, on the same. I guess I am always excited to watch a new episode of South Park because I'm excited to see what's gonna be new. What are they gonna say this week? What are they gonna cover this week? What kind of scathing social commentary are they gonna make? And similar to Ryan, I felt like it was a lot of the same stuff as last episode, but that makes sense since it's a part 2. But I thought Grandpa's whole discussion of him and Grammy having sex was so funny, and
that was really incredible.
And I also just, not to pat ourselves on the back too much, but I think a lot of the seeds that they planted in the first episode that we guessed, what they might mean, I feel like they really doubled down on what we thought, including Red Dead Redemption, that only the adults play, that allows them to escape responsibility for addressing things like climate change. Lux hit the nail on the head when he said car culture, and then we literally see Grandpa talking about that Man Bear Pig gave him cars. We even see a picture of him in a sweet ride with some ice cream and stuff like that. So I feel like we should all give ourselves a round of applause. Let's go ahead and do that. All right. But before we go into a recap, I do want to say that we actually specifically should give Lux a round of applause because when it comes to Amanda and I's discussion on whether or not Matt and Trey were climate deniers, we were totally wrong. We got a number of emails from fans really telling us that no, there have been a number of times in the show that they have overtly cast doubt upon climate change claims.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Really?
Lux, do you want to bring those emails up now? I feel like we should just address that up top since we were so horribly wrong.
Pull those up really fast. You're going to give me a second because I thought about pulling those from the mailbag, then I was like, I don't want to seem too look at me being right about stuff. No. So I didn't.
I'm a man.
Just
I'm a man.
revel in it, Lux.
Yeah, I'm a man who appreciates being wrong.
Yeah. Well, I
can't believe that. Like, who is a climate change denier after the 90s?
Here's one. Yeah, so for an email from our friend Ray Sandia, who says, "Howdy ho, authoritarians. I enjoy your videos and podcasts regularly. Keep up the amazing work. I'm a sustainability professional, and for me, time to get cereal was simply put a bit cathartic. Man Bear Pig is not the only episode in which they denied climate change. It appears as a nightmare in Imagination Land, implying comedically that climate change is imaginary. They also poked fun at it in 2 days before the day after tomorrow, and The Smug. They're fun episodes, and see there's funny stuff in these issues make comedy out of, but it's also true that climate change deniers have great comedic potential that they have never exploited until now. Don't take me wrong, those episodes are hilarious. It's not like they owe to make fun of both sides. However, there's no question that the show had somewhat of a stance on this issue, and to me, it makes it all the greater that they addressed it in the latest one. Sorry for the long email, and stay wise. From Ray."
Yeah, there was another one. We don't have to bring it up right now. We can bring it up in the mailbag later. But there was one where a guy actually listed out all the dialogue from various episodes where they do kind of call people who are making claims of climate change just like overreactionary liberals or something like that.
Okay, but also, like, you can make fun of liberals who believe in climate change without explicitly not believing in climate change yourself. Like, I feel like they always have kind of erred on the side of mocking, like, liberal activists, which I don't always take to mean them mocking the cause, but also I was kind of wrong, so
Well,
sit
I
on
do
that.
think that this is the most overt example of an apology from South Park. Remember last season we talked about how, especially with the episode where Kyle tries to cancel Terrence and Phillip, the show was really evaluating its effect on the culture, but not really doing much about it. But this is the first time that we see a overt apology, like a real, like, hey, we were morons.
Yeah, no, I mean it is very fascinating actually to see them take that tact, because like I think that and there's actually a fair amount of this kind of idea in the episode that like how do I put it that like they're reevaluating like what they think is like okay behavior. Like for instance, when Carmen's like, we've kind of been doing things your way up here on Earth for a while. It's like, you have kind of been doing my job for me. Like that feels like kind of a referendum on like the world as it exists now, which like South Park is a part of and a contributing factor. You know what I mean? Like it seems like they are kind of reconsidering their take on like what the world is or what it means, which I think is interesting and cool and also like really grown up, honestly.
Okay, but also I do feel, and maybe this was me seeing things the way I wanted to see them, but I felt like they were a little bit reacting to everybody's reaction last week, saying that it was a big apology to Al Gore by really amping up Al Gore's douchiness in this episode.
Yeah.
Like they were very much, you were right about this, but was the best thing to make a 2-hour documentary that stars your uncharismatic ass,
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more after the recap. So let's get into it. Man Bear Pig continues to ravage South Park as the kids weasel their way out of jail by tempting a guard with a Red Dead Redemption 2 tip. Meanwhile, the community attends an extremely serene symposium on whether or not they should consider to start worrying about Man Bear Pig. Satan barges in and warns humans of their impending doom. Out of jail, Stan returns to Tegrity Farms, where Randy points Stan in the direction of Grandpa, who also talked about Man Bear Pig when Randy was a kid. Al Gore appears to Kyle and convinces him to stay strong, while Sergeant Yates continues to dismiss Man Bear Pig crime scenes as school shootings. Stan confronts Grandpa Marsh about the deal his generation made that signed away the future in exchange for cool cars and premium boutique ice cream. At the directions of Al Gore, Satan and the boys meet up in the woods. The boys convince Satan to take Man Bear Pig on, mano a mano. Sergeant Yates returns home to be emasculated by his wife, who has far surpassed his quote-unquote life on Red Dead Redemption 2. Satan gets wrecked by Man Bear Pig and ascends to heaven, while a cable access show continues to weigh the importance of considering to deliberate starting to worry. The cops close in on the boys, but Sergeant Yates has a crisis of conscience, admits that Man Bear Pig is real, and brings Man Bear Pig and the boys to arbitration. Man Bear Pig says he'll only go away if they get rid of soy sauce and Red Dead Redemption 2, to which the South Park residents say, fuck that, to which Grandpa says, aha, see? End of episode. So, I really do think that we're continuing on with our thesis with the ultimate episode of Resignation, especially with that ending. But before we get to the ending, I want to talk about, let's talk about Jared the Galleria of Jewelry. I thought this was a really nice symbol of posterity. We see Man Bear.
I thought that scene was so good. That was like, I know that there was like the hilarious Grandpa speech and there was like the Hulk reference fight with Satan, but I actually thought that scene was my favorite part of the whole episode.
Yeah.
I thought that it was like brilliant in that it's this whole discussion of like future and value and these beautiful things that just gets destroyed by climate change. That it's this weird, like you say, a sense of like austerity in the face of like the negation of hope, in this like really direct way. And it was like a really strong sort of thesis statement about like, what's even the point of getting married or falling in love or thinking about the future if like this giant monster is gonna like eat your heart like 20 minutes later.
And just like that scene when during Satan's battle where you just see the Galleria just burning, it was like just beautiful.
Yeah, we see Man Bear Pig annihilate any kind of optimism towards starting a family that previous generations had. It was what a great way to very subtly communicate that theme with the first scene of the episode, and it's so funny.
Yeah, it's really well done. It reminded me a lot of a buddy of mine named Rory, whose comics you can find at Rory Blank Comics, or I think at pisscastle.com. did a comic that was all about like this grandpa talking to his kid and is like, oh, I can't wait for you to grow up and get some children and have a house. And the kid like thinks about the future and it's like a Mad Max wasteland and everything's on fire and everyone's dead. And it just like this whole episode reminded me of that bit so much. So shout out to Rory Blank for that comic, but like it reminded me of that idea so much. Just the idea of like total hopelessness and like a negation of the idea of future.
Yeah.
Like it was like very grim and sad, but they really fucking nailed it and when they were trying to as a tone and as like a bit.
Yep, real fun stuff.
Bleak.
All right, so let's go on to talk about the meat of the episode. Let's talk about climate change. So the first thing I want to start with is what seems like the most overt apology from Matt and Trey for climate change denial, where we have Kyle, who is very often, as we've established before, the voice of the show. He says, "What more do you want from me? I atoned for my mistake. Sorry, we were getting a lot of different information at the time, you know? Even you were wrong about a lot of the things you said would happen." Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I really like that because like the take Kyle's presenting isn't 100% crazy, right? Like denying climate change is crazy. It's wrong, whatever. But like Al Gore does suck in a lot of ways. Like especially like post-election, like crazy. I invented the internet and discovered climate change. Al Gore like is an annoying douchebag. And he like deserves to be called out for that. But at the same time, he's like they say, he's not totally wrong with everything. And I really liked how this episode, up until the ghost stuff started happening more regularly, really nailed that balance of like, this is a person whose ideas matter, but is a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And that was more kind of amped up than last week.
Yeah. I guess it's a decent segue to talk about the Force Ghost bullshit, though. God, I did not like that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I mean, the only reason I didn't really get it, I think that
100% didn't get it.
The thing that I did get out of it was that Al Gore is always using images of himself, whether they be reflections in Kyle's glass window or a projected image against the fog where he's showing Satan and the Boys a 2-hour movie when the credits roll and he's literally done everything. So I guess this is a funny way of just saying he's more obsessed with the image of himself warning against climate change than actual climate change.
Yeah, and that like he may have hurt the cause by making himself the self-appointed spokesman.
Yeah.
Of climate change. Yeah.
And where's that dude been?
Probably just off somewhere, like growing out his beard and like complaining about how it should have been an intranet the whole time, and this internet is a mistake.
Yeah, and bowling, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess bowling. Man, Al Gore's intranet, what a weird thing. But that's not what this episode's about.
It seems like everything that he says, I mean, like, he says things like, I believe in you, and sometimes believing is all you need to be serial. And then, like, I just kind of took that as nonsense, that it's just Al Gore being a douchebag. But then when Sergeant Yates basically has the crisis of conscience and admits that Man Bear Pig is real, he says, what are we if we don't believe each other? So I think this might be maybe more of what Amanda's saying about the structure not exactly working, because I don't know what we're supposed to take. Are we supposed to take anything to heart that Al Gore says? Is it deliberately nonsense? Are we actually supposed to think that there is some sort of arc going on here? What do you guys think?
I felt like it was just Al Gore being a douchebag and it was funny, which I think was part of just sort of the unpreciseness of the episode, but also like I laughed every time he spoke, so mission accomplished.
Yeah.
I had a slight my issue wasn't so much structural. Like I actually thought that like that element of the structure was kind of cool, that like it's simultaneously saying like believing in this shit matters and it can motivate you to do stuff and like try to make a difference, and like that's cool, and then immediately reverses track and is like, but no one's gonna do it and we're all gonna die. And I thought that was like, because one thing they're doing, as much as it like makes the whole season kind of a bummer when you dig deep on it like we do, like they keep escalating the stakes of not caring and also the degrees of not caring people will go to and like how. And they keep pushing the new directions, and like this is like the most brutal one, the one where like everyone agrees this thing is real and bad and that they want to do something about it, and then they just like won't.
And like the kids freaking signing away the future is like, not to jump ahead.
No, like that, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about though, like for sure. Like that.
Especially,
so devastating.
I'm not one to complain about the show being bleak. Like I love it, but that was like, whew, because I really kind of thought that they were going to do something a little more. I don't know. I didn't think the kids were going to settle so fast, but that's the season.
All right, yeah. So let's
Extremely the season.
let's just jump to the end then. So basically, the end message is essentially that what Grandpa says. Grandpa is essentially right. He says, or Stan says, "My stupid grandpa made a deal with Man Bear Pig. He's here because of their greediness." And then Grandpa says, "Everyone's greedy." And this is essentially the conclusion that Matt and Trey come to at the end when basically Man Bear Pig says, "I'll go," i.e. climate change will end, if you get rid of soy sauce and Red Dead Redemption 2. And then Stan goes outside and he pokes his head out the window to the crowd and says, he'll go away only if we get rid of soy sauce and Red Dead Redemption 2. And then what does the guy say? I like rewound it like 3 times. I still didn't know what he said. Like basically the crowd deflates enthusiasm, and then one guy just says something that I think is somewhere to the
Plain rice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. He says plain. I was like, what is he saying? Yeah. So then Stan basically says, no, just like Grandpa, who wouldn't give up his stuff, like his cars and stuff, we're not giving up Red Dead Redemption 2 and flavored rice.
I really liked the ice cream and soy sauce choices in this episode. And I'm going to do the thing I was complaining at Ryan about doing last week and step on one of the mailbag questions, but it seems like a reasonable time to talk about it.
Go for it.
Like, those aren't incidental choices. Ice cream popularization and broad scale manufacturing is a huge part of why we have the type of factory farm industry we have now, which is a huge contributor to climate change. And soy farming and tofu processing and all that shit is like almost as bad as cars for the environment and for global warming stuff.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I really thought it was just random. No,
like these are real like issues, and I really like that the show even kind of flippantly makes this not, because I think that you get and like Al Gore is not entirely irresponsible for this, but like a lot of the discussion of climate change is like, when you drive your car, big plumes of smoke come out of it, and look at these factory towers, and they're burning all this stuff, and it's all going into the sky where it makes you poisoned. And like that's not, I mean, it's part of how it works, but it's not the whole thing. Like carbon sinks get destroyed, and like oxygen reproduction slows down, and like heat islands form and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of layers to it, and at least they're, if not going deep on that stuff, because like who has the fucking time for that, they're at least gesturing towards it, which is cool and smart, and the sort of like next level analysis that makes the season of South Park seem like, I think, more resonant with me than the past couple have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just kind of the banality of not being willing to give up, you know, a video game, a certain condiment, a dessert. It definitely, just the banality of them, of those particular items underscores like how little we as a race are willing to do.
All right. I mean, teaser for an upcoming video, but like we talk about in a video we're doing soon about like how willing people are to go to, or how far people are willing to go. Jesus Christ, that came out so wrong. How far people are willing to go to maintain the status quo, and like how much the status quo matters, and like how like far systems of power or individuals will go to like just not have to deal with the idea of change. Like that's what this episode's all about. Like no one wants to, even like small lifestyle changes like plain rice and like a different video game are like out of the question.
I mean,
like Bomber City.
But let's be honest, Red Dead Redemption 2 is pretty awesome.
Oh my god, it fucking bangs, dude. I haven't even gotten that far because I've just been playing, like running around doing quests, but my character, I haven't shaved at all or bathed, and I walk around carrying bear skins. I'm just like a crazy hobo. It's so fun.
Yeah. Well, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm definitely revealing my ignorance when it comes to climate stuff, but when people in the 50s, whatever, when car culture started, weren't they just completely ignorant that it would do anything, or did they really make a deal with the devil or with a man bear pig?
I don't think people were completely ignorant of the stuff, but it was in a very different way. And I think it's actually the one, I mean, if we're making like a chronological or sociological argument against like what they're doing, the one error they kind of make is I think it's like 70s and 80s car culture that is like the jumping point to like next level problem, right? Because then that's when they did know, and that's when it was like more ubiquitous to own cars and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like it probably would be more accurate to blame the baby boomers than to go back to the greatest generation. Just
Yeah,
in terms of complicity.
yeah. I mean, they definitely started the process, and obviously, like when they started making the stuff popularized, no one was like, "I wonder if all this smoke coming out of our car is bad," which like a question they probably could have asked, but it wasn't until I think like the 70s and 80s, and it was like everyone owns a car and we drive everywhere and we're doing all this stuff, and it's like, well, what if gasoline is bad? Everyone's like, don't care. That's sort of like I think the more like point of no return-y kind of moment.
Interesting.
Word.
I read a lot of Virilio. If you guys are interested in this kind of stuff, Paul Virilio writes a lot about cars and the attendant culture, and then talks about the environment and stuff. So if people are interested in reading about that kind of shit, check out Paul Virilio.
Really?
So another thing I wanted to bring up is not my. I mean, there are times in the show when the kind of the argument comes out very clearly. And last time it was with the guy sipping wine at Red Lobster. This time we had a cop telling Sergeant Yates, "Yes, but all the forensic scientists are saying that there are bear and pig footprints." And then Sergeant Yates says, "Fuck scientists! Why are you trying to figure out what's going on with scientists?" And
I just love the stupidity of even the wording of that line.
Yeah, and as much as I appreciate the sentiment here, I just didn't think it was as clever as what was going on in the last episode, when more or less it was saying the same thing.
Yeah, for sure. It seemed a little, I don't know. Like that's one of the parts where like I definitely feel Ryan's criticism. Like it was sort of just everyone being like Galileo says the sun doesn't revolve around the earth, and everyone's like, no.
Right.
It was the same bit.
It was repetitious. It was repetitious of, I think, one of the best episodes of the season. So had that going for it. But yeah, no, I see that.
True. Good point. Yeah, the thing is like even the degrees which was repetitious, or even like when I was like kind of not super into it, like the Al Gore ghost stuff, like there was still like business there. Like there was still stuff, and it was still referring to funny shit and like doing good work. Honestly, I might even be willing to say that if this episode had been like episode 3 of this season, I might have given it like an A or an A+. It's just that this season's been like good enough that I'm just like, not everything works. So sorry, dudes.
Yeah,
totally.
It's
I was thinking
season.
about that. Like this episode only stalled a little bit because the overall season has just been like on fire.
Yeah, like I truthfully don't know if there was a better episode than this last season at all. And this is maybe my 3rd or 4th, even 5th favorite episode of this season.
Yeah, it's been a rockin' season for sure.
I know, fucking banger.
Yeah. I don't really have anything insightful to say about Grandpa's speech about Grandma, but can we just take a moment to appreciate it?
Oh, it was fucking perfect.
I didn't write down the whole thing, but I did get I got a part of it. He says, "I didn't think I'd have grandkids. I didn't even want children. That's why I always came on Graham Cram's tits. I'm just saying that I didn't think about the future because your dad was supposed to be nothing more than dried up crust on Graham Graham's titties."
You know when you laugh so hard, you're like, you can't actually laugh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was me.
That was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I knocked some stuff over in my room because I was laughing, did like a little leg kick and kicked a bunch of stuff out of my bed. That was so good. And I mean, again, this is maybe just me being like a weirdo. Okay, I will retract the mic. This is me being a weirdo, but I did like this shout out to like secretly kinky old white people as a concept.
Oh, sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Which is like one of my favorite like weird like tropes of like media is just like, I'm an old rich man from World War II and I love whips and chains.
Yeah.
And so I love the whole like she stuck her finger in my butt and that's just how we do it. Like the idea of these like weird pervy old people is like always very funny to me, and I thought that was like a A+ execution of that bit.
Okay, I'm going to go on a little side anecdote here, but I'm going to make it quick. I wish Ryan was here because this is something Ryan and I experienced together. But in that same vein of people in the Greatest Generation being kinkier than you would ever think, Ryan and I once went to, at the New Beverly Cinema in LA, they had this special night called The Dirty Old Days, and it was basically the oldest pornos in existence that they were showing in public. And these weren't even pornos that were for public consumption. These things were films made in like the 1910s that were meant only to be played at high-class brothels for like rich people. And and we went thinking it would be funny, and there were like people on dates, men and women. It was a very diverse crowd, and the funny thing was you could just sense that everyone walked in thinking like, oh, ha, naughty films from the 10s and 20s. I'm sure this is all going to be just softcore, fun, titillating nonsense. No, it was fucking hardcore. Excuse me. There was like bestiality and all sorts of just crazy shit. And it was the funniest movie-going experience I ever had, because all these guys on dates had their girlfriends just screaming out like, oh my God, I can't believe what I'm watching. It was hilarious.
That rules. And then, of course, like, if you look close enough at the shit, like, you can tell that they were all like weird sex freaks. Cause like Tijuana Bibles were super popular, and those are just like weird cartoons of like people engaging in like pretty seriously weird sex acts. And that was like a huge thing in the 20s and 30s. Like the seeds are there, but it's something you don't think about because they're grandpa.
Yeah. Imagine basically these were black and white films, no sound, because the sound wasn't even invented yet. It was all on like the 1.3 speed, because just depending on how fast they were cranking the camera. And it's amazing how the narrative of like, one of them was like a maid is, brushing the hair of her whatever, the person she's serving. And then like, they start going at it. And then like the man of the house comes in and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I must be interrupting something. And they're like, no, come in. And it's just so funny how even in the 10s, like the narrative of a pornography has maintained this is like the same. You can almost see that guy being like the pizza delivery guy who walks in on something and being like, oh, I'm sorry. What am I walking into? And they're like, come join. It was hilarious. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Let's talk about the When Should I Start to Worry Symposium and the Cable Access Show.
Oh, yeah, that's some good shit.
I love just, this season they've really nailed just creating characters and just the design of the characters, really speaking volumes about them. Like I mentioned in earlier episodes that for the vaping hipsters, they are, wearing Merces and have like over-the-top hip glasses and all that stuff and beards. And now with this guy who's at the symposium, he's bald, his demeanor is super calm, he's got this nice beard, and he's just like half whispering, and everything is just over the top aesthetic of calmness. It's so funny.
Yeah, and it's the sort of like, I love it because it does speak to so much stuff that happens. Like when I'm doing like political organizing stuff and I'm at meetings, stuff will happen where someone is like, this is going to be a problem later. And then someone's like, but do we need to care about it now? And everyone's like, I don't know, do we? And that becomes what the question's about, not like how do we deal with the problem. Like that's such a real thing. I'm sure it happens in places other than DSA meetings too. And like, I thought they captured that idea so fucking well, of just the way that people, instead of answering the hard question, would rather just deflect to a conversation about whether or not they have to.
I love how... Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just loved the aesthetics of like the crochet like time card before it was just so peaceful. Yeah.
It was so peaceful. And I love how people were getting claps for the most meaningless gestures towards considering worrying. It was... Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that even even acting like maybe it's worth doing something is like a brave step when like the idea of action itself is something that people can't quite wrap their heads around.
Yeah. It was pretty freaking hilarious. I did not get the joke, of course, when Al Gore is there and then the spirit of Al Gore comes there and Al Gore says, what does he say? Like, you're not supposed to...
Like, you goofball.
Yeah, you're not supposed to inspire me, or I'm not supposed to inspire you, you're supposed to inspire me, goofball, or something like that.
Yeah, that felt like it kind of...
Sorry, what was the name, Amanda?
I was going to say, that kind of felt like a shrug of them saying, like, this didn't really amount to anything, did it?
Like the episode just being like, ooh, we thought this was going to work better than it did.
Yeah, that's okay. They got a lot of other stuff working here. All right, let's talk about Red Dead Redemption 2. We kind of already touched on this a little bit, but, when in our last episode we mentioned I think it was Amanda that pointed out that only the adults are playing, that it really does seem to be this Second Life escape to not worry about real-world issues like climate change. And I just love how we have Randy smoking weed and playing Red Dead Redemption 2 instead of doing anything about addressing the disaster.
While his son's in jail.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. I liked it as a shout out. Also, I think that there were some visual shout outs in this episode and even the last one to Make Love Not Warcraft. Like people hunched over the computer with like game footage playing on the computer and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a nice shout out to that episode. And then I just like loved, well, first of all, I empathized with the cop at the beginning who was just killing all the cops in the town. Because that's my play style.
That's a great mission.
See, I haven't done a lot of missions. I just go to the town and kill the cops.
Okay.
Because I'm a crazed hobo. That's my character, and people hate to talk to him. It's very weird. I should screen capture more of it. Anyways, what I really liked about it is that it served the same purpose as last episode, where it was this escape from stuff and allowed people to sort of ignore things around them. But I liked what Jacob pointed out, that it also is this idea of like a new beginning, like starting a life in a world that doesn't have this particular problem. And we see like the idea of starting over, starting a new life, and it's like sort of a futility throughout the episode. And I like this as like a real concrete metaphor for that in a certain way, that like we can always make these new lives by having, you know, creating a video game or whatever, but it's not a real new life, and the problems that we're trying to hide still exist or whatever. And I really liked how the episode drew that out.
Yeah, just like really literalizing the idea that like we all wish we could just start over from the beginning and not be encountering this problem. Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I loved the I don't know her name, the head cop's wife, like becoming a master gamer and like way out gaming him. That was just
what
great.
did you guys think about how that motivated his realization that Man Bear Pig is real? At first I was confused. I was like, wait, why does he think it's real all of a sudden? The only thing I could come away with is that once his wife has ruined his so-called second life, it's that only when you take the escape way are people willing to do anything. That's kind of what I came away from it. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, basically the same thing. Hold on. Amanda, you should say something because my dog is making a lot of noise.
Oh, okay. So I was going to say that, you know, his wife was like, I'm twice the man you are. You have a hat that you won in poker. Like, definitely just kind of ruining the fun of his second life and making it seem pretty lame in comparison, I thought. So kind of what you said, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was just wanting to see something of why does he all of a sudden stop believing in school shootings? Like, that's just kind of left out.
Yeah, like it was not the smoothest causal relationship for sure.
Yeah, especially because that scene with his wife had like so many like little things happening in it that made it kind of weird to draw that line. Like it has this like little shout out to like female gamers and like male reactions to that, right? Where he's like, "You stole my life and my game." And I know that in the context of the episode, that's very specific to about like the idea of escaping, but I think that that's not a coincidence. That's like a mantra that we hear from like Gamergate or dudes on the internet all the fucking time. I think that's intentional to a certain degree. Of the people who won't acknowledge the world around them and go and hide in games tend to sort of be the same kind of people who do Gamergate-y shit. And there was like that element to it. There was this whole stolen second life element. There was this whole like, what even does like Yates have to offer the world? Like, what does his like life even mean? There were all these different like kind of variables in that scene that were all cool and worked together and made me enjoy that scene, but then did really muddy up the transition from that scene to his like next action.
Yeah. And maybe all of that was a little bit glossed over because they spent all their time on the Satan versus Man Bear Pig scene. Let's talk about that.
Oh, I love a shout out to the Ed Norton Hulk, right? Anytime.
Okay.
Anytime I can get one of those.
That's what I thought, but I was also thinking it's like it may be more from the comics, but a Superman versus Doomsday kind of thing.
Yeah, but since they're both so big, I think it reads more Hulk and Abomination than Superman and Doomsday.
Okay. That makes
Since
sense.
they're the same size.
I've not seen that movie, but I think it's in the trailer where we see that scene.
Yes.
Is getting stabbed with your own horn a thing? Like, is that a reference to something? I just thought that was so wild.
I think that's from the Hulk fight, but I also think that that's like a pretty just like cool thing that happens in fights where people have horns.
Dude, that scene
You know what I mean?
kind of
Like that's
made
just
me
one of those, like if you're an
sad.
action choreographer and a guy has horns and you're killing him, it's like you better break one of those off and stab him with it. Like why else do they have them?
That scene made me
it's
sad
great.
because Satan is one of my favorite characters, and just seeing him be obliterated was like, yeah, hit me in the feels, man. I didn't want to see that. I wanted to see Satan kick some ass.
Yeah, well, it was especially brutal because like going into it, at least for me, I was like, okay, well, this is very South Park. Like they're gonna be like, oh, the problem goes away because of like this magic thing that like the people in the show believe in, but they know the audience can't like really believe in because like duh. And like this whole cosmological solution, and instead they were like, nope, like there's even like magic and cosmology like have no hope before like the horror of Man Bear Pig.
They saved it a little by making him become an angel. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah, they saved Satan, but not the people.
And especially
Well, yeah,
since
we're screwed.
I was
Yeah.
never I was never afraid that
that's
the
like what I thought was cool about it is like I was all ready for it to be like Satan does it, and then there's like a weird like made a deal with the devil to beat this other demon, blah 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 blah, like kind of moral thing happening, and it was just like fuck that shit. Like we're all gonna die. Satan can't stop it. Presumably that means God and angels can't stop it. Like there's just nothing. Which was like brutal to see one of my favorite characters get punched up, and then also brutal to like realize that metaphorical epiphany and just be like, oh man.
Yeah, and we got a throwback to, I can't even remember the last time Kyle said this, but he says, dude, this is pretty fucked up right here, right as he
yeah.
ascends to heaven. Did he say that as early as season 1? Like that was a thing that Kyle always said. I haven't heard him say it in years.
Yeah, I don't remember when that started, but that did perk my ears up because it's been a while since we've gotten that tagline off that guy.
Yeah. I never was afraid that Satan would actually die because he's fucking Satan. I thought they were probably just going to like make a joke that he goes back to hell and it's the same shit, but he goes to heaven to chill with the sewer rat god or whatever he is.
Platypus, hippo.
Yeah,
guy.
whatever he is. Anyway, let's go ahead into the mailbag. Let's start out with some voicemails once again, guys. If you want to... Oh, well, do you guys have anything else you want to talk about before we move on?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, this episode is a lot of rehashing ideas from last week, you know? So,
Yeah, same.
All right. So if you guys want to leave us a voicemail, it's 213-534-8807. We're also trying to come up with like an acronym, like 213 South Park or something. But we've had a couple people present us with some ideas. Some of them haven't worked. But yeah, if you guys can think of anything, that would be dope. Let's start off with a email from Sean. Go, Sean.
Wisecrack and Wisecrack is Sean. I was going to say that, well, I enjoyed Jared incredibly. I think he's kind of really wrong, honestly. He's absolutely wrong. The scene with the Man Bear Pig in the restaurant is honestly a representation of what we're dealing with currently in America. We are dealing with people who feel the climate change on the least amount of everything. And that is the reason the dude in the furthest back room, or the furthest, like, 2 seconds. I am very drunk, so I'm going, guys. You're awesome. Jared, you're awesome. Sorry I disagree with capitalism and everything else, but capitalism killed the world, so like, it's great now, but, like, no, it's not going to be great. Anyways, besides all of that, when we're talking about climate change, and it's like we here in the capitalist countries that have like money and power and everything else are just like, oh, climate change, you know, like we're having an argument by it while everybody else is getting like murdered by it. And that was the joke of the entire situation, like the people who are so comfortable and so not getting destroyed and murdered and raped by climate change are just like cool. And everybody else is just like getting murdered. We're like, well, what can we do about it? Meaning that like, what can us, who are not affected by the situation, and the dude gets his head bitten off. So that's my consensus. Have fun, Jared, man. I don't know. Well, not doing well, but you're still awesome. So have fun.
All right.
Sarcastic.
All right.
Isn't that what we said that scene was about?
That's what I thought. So you agree with us.
Well, I'm just glad you guys were able to discern anything out of that.
I'm not totally sure what you were saying, but it sounds like the thing that we were saying, so I'm a little confused.
Also, question, can't our acronym just be RESPECT? Like 305 RESPECT?
Oh, well, I'm just looking for somebody to fit it with 213-534-8807.
Oh, like a bigger thing. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
I'm on
so it
it.
has to fit with the number that already exists.
Word. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page as Sean. I think.
Hard to tell. I mean, I agree that you're awesome, so there's that.
I hope
call back in next week and clarify. 'Cause it sounds like what you're saying is that the joke of that scene was that the privileged people at the table can sort of have this long conversation about climate change, while the not privileged people at the back get eaten by Man Bear Pig, which I think is what we were talking about last week, right? Like, Amanda, you talked about very specifically, like, that dynamic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that's what you meant. Then I think we're on the same page. So call back in next week to clarify, because I am confused.
Same.
All right, now let's go to, we got one from Eric. Go, Eric.
Hey, Wisecrack. This is Eric from Hawaii, just calling in regards to the Respect My Authoritah podcast. I just finished watching the new episode featuring Man Bear Pig, and I just want to point out some few details that I noticed and share with you guys. The first one is I noticed the fight between Satan and Man Bear Pig looked very familiar to the fight in the Incredible Hulk movie, the one starring Edward Norton.
Lux is right again.
Illusions, like where Man Bear Pig stabs Satan with a horn, looked just like a bit in that movie. Thought that was interesting. Why they would allude to an early Marvel movie. And the second one is when Man Bear Pig is negotiating with the boys for a new deal. I noticed that Man Bear Pig has two right hands. If you look at his human hand, his thumb is on the outside of his hand. I thought it's just an interesting detail that the animators included in his design. Made it very grotesque. So I just thought those are some cool things to point out, and wonder if there's anything else you guys noticed. Anyway, love the show and look forward to hearing the episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
Wow, great eye, Eric.
Great pickup, dude. That was fucking
Yeah, man.
I like how it's like two different persons' hands. He had to kill two people to create this abomination. When I say he, I don't know who created him. I'm assuming he created himself, but you see where I'm going.
Cthulhu thing.
Yeah.
I think maybe hearing that email, one of the reasons why maybe it makes sense to have it be this Hulk reference is that, like, the Hulk and Abomination are both, like, accidents of science and progress. In the same way as I mean, that's like a real stretch. But it is like a little bit of a connection between that particular, there's like a million scenes I could have used for that. And so maybe that's like part of where it's coming from, that like connection of like, these are beasts created by, us meddling with forces that we don't fully understand at the time, like gamma radiation or cars in the 50s.
That makes sense.
Speaking of great imagery, like my favorite shot of the episode would definitely have to be Man Bear Pig in his suit. Like that was just like they just really leaned into like the complete contrast from that epic battle to just like sitting in a courtroom, and yeah, I loved it.
Like when I wear
That's
a suit.
Exactly.
All right,
gross and weird.
We got one more from Anonymous. Go, Anonymous.
I respect our authoritarians. Enjoyed the last podcast. Thanks for that. I just wanted to mention that I was a little surprised at the ambivalence about whether Trey and Matt had sort of questionable opinions about climate change. If you guys remember, in 2005, there was, what was it, 2 days after the day before tomorrow, day after tomorrow, season 9, I think, which was explicitly about how they thought that climate change was total bullshit. So I think that the most recent Return of Man Bear Pig episode is clearly them saying, oh, we fucked up and we were wrong. And South Park has a very big right-wing libertarian following audience, and I think that they're definitely trying to take responsibility for that. Anyway, thanks for the show. Enjoy it much, and looking forward to the next one. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Anonymous. Yeah, I mean, we admitted that up top.
Wrong.
We fucked up.
Well, you were wrong.
I was wrong. Lux was right.
Lux was right.
Not just you. Everyone but me.
Well, Ryan was kind of in your camp. I don't think he quite was able to cite previous episodes. It's funny. I have a scene the day before which is the one where there's like a tsunami of pee? That's not that episode, right?
No, that's like I forget what. There's like that's a whole episode about pee.
Okay.
I think.
Okay. I got to go back and watch those. Anyway, those are the voicemails, 213-534-8807. Now we're going to go into the mailbag. You can send us an email at southpark@wisecrack.co. Lux, what do you got for us?
We got a bunch from both email and Discord. And remember, you can join the Discord by going to Wisecrack Plus and join the Patreon and clicking the attendant perk option. First is the email we mentioned earlier from Kevin about climate change. I just want to hit this really quick because you guys mentioned it, and I wanted to pull his site because it is pretty good. Kevin says, most notably in my mind, he's talking about times I talked about climate change. And he says, most notably in my mind is the episode of Goobacks, where when the town is discussing how to keep people from the future from coming to our time, this exchange happens. How about we cause more global warming so that in the future the polar ice caps melt and ushers in a new ice age? And then someone else says, how the hell is global warming going to cause an ice age? Well, you know, the global climate could be on a climate shift or something. Shit, you are a fucking retard, you know that? Even if global warming were real, which all proven scientific data shows it isn't, it would take millions of years for a climate shift to happen. You think an ice age can just happen all of a sudden like? Well, I was just trying to be helpful. Well, help yourself to a fucking science book, because you're talking like a fucking retard. Sorry about everything.
Wait, which is the character that says that?
One of the rednecks.
But
don't you feel like they're embodying like the stupidity of the anti-global warming argument in that? Because that's just, I mean, even at that time, like no science showed that global warming was not real.
Oh, well, I mean, there's always been bad science that says that. There even is that now.
But you know what I mean? Like, doesn't it feel like it swings to like parody? Like, how is that different from the wine scene from last week?
I guess I'd have to see it because, yeah, usually the redneck characters are like morons in the show. So I should probably revisit that episode because it's really all it matters. It mattered. The context definitely matters.
Yeah, but I think this is the one you were talking about where he's pulling from different episodes and different quotes. That's just the one quote we hadn't already talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think that you can read it as like a product thing, but I also think that like, you know, one of them has to be a parody and one of them is not. And the question of like who is the product one and who isn't is the question. Right? Like either the climate change yes guy is a parody or the climate change no guy is a parody. And it's just a question of like
it's a parody.
What?
Or they're both a parody.
Whoa.
Well, wait, what happens in that episode? It's the day after whatever tomorrow, so certainly...
That's the Goobacks episode when people come back from the future and they make the big pile where they all start fucking each other.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe we can rewatch that and get into it, but that's just another example of like how it's come up before. Let's get into some of the other emails that we got because we have a bunch and I'm going to go through them quick. This is from Phil. I'm going to skip your intro, even though you said some very nice things about us. First off, I think Man Bear Pig isn't just a global warming allegory, although that's the main point, but it's somewhat evolved to an embodiment of greed, whether it's something as massive as climate change or something micro level like having soy sauce. As long as you can shift the cost on someone else, people tend to let their greed control them. Do you folks agree, or am I reading into this?
I think it's both.
Yes. Right?
Yeah, like I think that this episode was for sure about the fact that like even idealistic kids can be really fucking greedy. Yeah. So yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, I mean I'm inclined to agree as well. That it's like that they're going one step further than saying climate change is bad. They're saying climate change is like the result of like rampant greed, and that's bad too, which like is hard to argue with.
Right. I agree. I think it's both.
Okay, this one's cool. This is from Joel, and this is a more season-wide meta question. Quick question. 2 seasons ago, South Park repeatedly mocked throwbacks and nostalgia, basically making it a focus of the season. Now 6 episodes, now 7. In season 22, we witnessed the return of Hanky and Towley, Man Bear, and the Nerd Face from the WoW episode, which we see in past when Stan's doing some research in the library and some other places. Do you think this is on purpose? Are they going somewhere with this? Why do Matt and Trey have us all eating these member berries? # cancel South Park. And that's from Joel.
Yeah, I don't... when was the last time Towley was in the show? I mean, I feel like these are staples. I don't think it's out of the ordinary for them to bring back characters. I mean, at this point, there are so many characters. The cast is so big. I guess I don't really see it as a memberberry thing to see Towley again, or to see, I mean, maybe Mr. Hanky, because I feel like that's been a while, but...
Towley's been a couple of years, I think.
See, maybe
I mean, I would love to see some resolution on the Member Berry plotline from last season?
2 seasons ago.
2 seasons ago. Okay, but I think that hope might be worn out.
I mean, I'll say this. I think that they are in the process of, in this season as well as in the last season, of evaluating the show's impact, and especially also how the show evolves as culture evolves. So obviously characters like Token and well, Token isn't one that's necessarily coming back, but that was brought up in season 19 when they first started to react to a more politically correct world. But specifically Towley and especially Mr. Hanky, these are good stand-ins for, hey, the show's kind of bread and butter of comedy is perhaps antiquated now. How do we deal with this? So I think that they're very useful tools to evaluate themselves, as they seem to be really keen on doing. But I don't know if necessarily they're making any claims about nostalgia.
Yeah, and I think one thing about this is that there's a distinction between like cultural nostalgia and personal nostalgia. Like, I do think that the Member Berry's argument about like the way that like reverting to old culture and like replaying the cultures of our past is like probably not a great thing because it like re-entrenches old ideas that are maybe stupid. But I also think that it's okay to look back at your life and things you've made and like, oh, we did that. Which I think is more what they're doing than like trying to like bring back the feelings of the old times, you know?
Yeah, I see that.
And so I think it's a little bit of a distinction of type within that. Like, I think Joel's making an okay point, but I just think that it's not quite the same thing.
Cool.
So our next email is from Trevor, but unfortunately it's very long and I don't think we're going to get to it. But the gist of it is that we were talking about how China was making a big mess of the environment, but actually they're doing a bunch of cool climate change stuff in China where they're doing a bunch of renewable energy infrastructure and funding, stuff like that. So our bad about being wrong with that, and cool information.
And like everybody is doing something except the United States, I guess, is the main takeaway.
Yep.
I'm glad to hear that. I can only really offer an anecdote that when I was in Beijing during the 2008 Olympics, and I remember like they were putting nitrites into the air to make it rain to clean the pollution, and I was always like, oh wow, the government can make it rain? I didn't know that. That sounds kind of shady. Maybe we shouldn't fuck with that. And that's not really going anywhere, but I certainly remember that.
No, I mean, the degree, you know, obviously the Chinese government has like a history of maybe doing things in not the best possible way, but they're trying to do some stuff, and that's pretty cool. Okay, and so the last one I think is pretty interesting, and I want to get to this last email. We have a couple from Discord that I want to get really quick. This is from Caroline, and Caroline says, a paragraph of really nice shit that I'm going to skip because I want to get to the meat of this email, and then says, I wanted to address something that came up in your latest episode on South Park. Time to get serial. It was mentioned at the end that some people in all political parties are feeling that South Park has been getting too political in recent seasons. Then Amanda brought up the fact that art has always been political. She's absolutely right, especially when it comes to performance mediums such as TV shows, plays, and musicals. She prefaces this by making it clear that I'm an actor and do a bit of bias on this topic, but I feel it's important through my research and training. I've found it more and more difficult to find a form of performance art that is not political in some way. Sure, there are a few here and there, but it's very few. In fact, one of the earliest plays is titled Trojan Women. That was an anti-war play written sometime around 415 BCE. Even celebrated writers such as Shakespeare got political in their plays. Julius Caesar, anyone? In more recent history, there were the plays of the Harlem Renaissance, such as A Raisin in the Sun and The Dutchman, which brought light to the African-American experience in the 1920s, and that many still face today. Then there were the ones that crossed media, such as Boys in the Band, play-turned-movie from 1968, which addressed homosexuality at the time, and Zoot Suit, play-turned-movie from 1978 that addressed the way Chicanos were treated in America while using the framework of the Sleepy Lagoon murder trials. Very similar to how The Crucible was an allegory for the McCarthy trials. My point is that art has always been political, and South Park is no exception to this. So those complaining are more likely complaining because Matt and Trey are not afraid to hold up the mirror that exposes the bullshit on both sides. Reckoning the superiority the members of the parties try to hold over each other. Sorry for the long email. That's okay. It was very good. Please keep up the amazing work, and I look forward to the next episode. Caroline. Amanda,
Caroline,
you can take
I loved that. That was really cool and really knocks the head on the point that, you know, it's always political. People probably just don't like that it's not their politics that's always being represented. So yeah, amazing point, Carolyn, and I loved hearing that.
Yeah, and like you said last week, that like you have a sort of privileged position to be able to like ignore the political elements of it when the political element is just sort of like an erasure question or something, or a perspective question.
Yeah, she's totally
definitely
right.
Don't like it when that gets interrupted. Actually, I wanted to bring this up to Ryan, but he's not here, so I guess we'll have to do this. We'll do this without him. But
he'll be listening.
Remember last week,
you can
Ryan
talk
mentioned
to him
that they had that a roller coaster would not be a political ride.
Yeah,
theoretically, and I don't know if you guys saw this, but yesterday a guy was banned from Disneyland for bringing a Trump 2020 sign on Splash Mountain.
No shit.
for the thing that takes pictures as you're going down.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That's hilarious.
You're not allowed to bring signs of any kind on those rides for that reason. But like, it was like Ryan mentioned that, and like I woke up this morning, like one of the first things I saw on my like Twitter, like, you know, tweets you've missed or whatever, was that, and I was just like, oh my god, that's exactly what we talked about.
Roller coasters getting political. Love it.
And I can't believe someone on Splash Mountain, my favorite piece of ride design in the world, and someone just takes a Trump. Oh, unbelievable. Just appreciate Brer Rabbit. It's an incredible piece of animatronics. Anyway,
cool. Let's move on to the Discord.
Yeah, we can go from the Discord. We have one from Nabrix who asks, "What do you think Satan meant by people up here have been doing my work for me? Does this tie into the theme from episode 3 that everyone is kind of shitty? On a similar note, from a South Park lore and continuity perspective, what do you think of Satan's going to heaven? At the end of season 4, episode 10, Satan banishes Saddam Hussein to heaven. At the end of season 6, episode 12, A Ladder to Heaven, it's revealed that Saddam is making WMDs in there. Is this Satan and Saddam reunion in our future?"
Ooh. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'd love to get Saddam back. Saddam's
awesome.
One of my favorite things on the show. Wow, I've always loved to get Saddam back, in a sense I didn't think would come out of my mouth in my life. But here we are. But yeah, I think that's definitely on the table. I think maybe Saddam would be a weird one to mix into the idea of these like kind of banal evils they've been talking about this season. In some ways, like the evil of like resignation and boredom. But like they've killed it, so I'm not super. I would be into it. I'd be excited.
Yeah, and they've been pretty good about like making storylines have a point and not just throwing shit in this season. So maybe we'll have an Apu Christmas show and Saddam and Satan will fall back in love. That'd be great.
I love it.
As far as his first question, I kind of read it as just kind of general South Park misanthropy about how the last couple seasons have been about how the world is in kind of a state of shit show. And I didn't really take that he was pointing to anything specifically, but I guess you could make the argument that he's like, hey, we've been greedy and destroying the world, and you haven't even had to do anything.
Yeah. I think there's something to that. And I also think that like maybe it's a little bit what's a good way to say this? It's like kind of getting at fuck it, I forgot the bit I was about to do. So fuck it. Just slipped right out of my skull. Neighbors also asked really quickly, do you guys think you'd be able to give up Red Dead Redemption in order to stop Man Bear Pig / climate change?
I've never played, so yes, but soy sauce, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I've got 200-hour games and I'm only halfway through, so I'd be on Red Dead. I got plenty more to do, so I'd be okay, I think.
I mean, I'm willing to give it up in like a month, but does it have to be now?
Oh, so real. All right, and our last one is from our friend CC Collected, the Communist Octopus, and he asks us, first, not my official question. Oh, well, first he asked about the soy sauce, like we mentioned before. Soy sauce actually does have like a pretty substantial economic impact on the world. And the official question is, does this all mean we're truly fucked?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that like this episode seemed like to really definitively be like, even if everyone wants to do something and tries, eventually human shittiness will win and everything will be bad.
I mean, that's certainly what the episode is saying, and I think that South Park kind of gets a kick out of misanthropy. Are they saying that? I don't know. Like, do you think that Matt and Trey are really? I mean, they have kids. Do you really think that they're just like, fuck it, our kids' lives are going to suck? Or do they have a little bit of hope?
Oh, sorry. I feel like parents, if anything, would be more like desperate and freaked out, like imagining the future. But I mean, I definitely feel like I left last week thinking, maybe there's going to be something remotely, even like an iota uplifting by having the kids like leading the crusade, and this episode they were like, nope, no fucking way.
Nope,
So,
kids are just as shitty as we are.
yeah.
I'm inclined to agree that like that's sort of what the show is getting at, is just like the ability for people to just like let things just be totally fucked. And yeah, I think that you're right about it being sort of this generalized misanthropy about people being fucked over. But I also think that there's like this difference in the show now where like it used to be about pointing out how shit was wrong with the world, and now it sort of like takes for granted that everything's fucked up. And I think maybe it's getting a little bit of that too, that, you know, it's no longer about South Park pointing out like, hey, this is pretty whack. It's sort of like everyone knows it's whack. They're just like making bits out of it.
Yeah, it's no longer that, hey, look at Tom Cruise or look at Mel Gibson. These people are fools. They should stop acting like fools. Now it's just like human beings essentially suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it for the mailbag. A lot of really good stuff. And remember, you can email us at southpark@wisecrack.co or join the Discord, and you can talk to us there and put your questions in the chat.
Cool. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Lux. Ryan, we miss you, buddy. Keep on sending those voicemails. We're going to try and see if the fun people at Funhouse... Why don't everybody just go harass Funhouse on Twitter and ask them to let Ryan go for Thursday mornings when we do this podcast. We'll see how that turns out. Anyway, guys, see you later.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
Peace.
Later, everyone.
Later.